Yeah. All right, great. So that would be, in other words, that'd be the equivalent of you all not going to Shenandoah University because you have essentially right here in your backyard. You might want to go out and find something else. However, you can still use that. It's right here in your backyard, so that's another good point. But Miss Flanigan ran away from home and came all the way here, which is good. Here's another question. Did you get in trouble at all when you were in school, or were you pretty good kid?
I was a pretty good kid. I was the kind of kid who was like so petrified by the idea of being in trouble that I pretty much like disciplined myself if I stepped out of line. But that wasn't always the case. You know, I was occasionally somebody who tried to stretch the boundaries a little bit. But you know, I had some teachers who were very, very forgiving and supportive, and you know that makes a huge difference. So I'm not trying to give anybody ideas.
Oh, there's something to test me.
I imagine that some of you are a little bit, you know, pushing on the edges of those things. And, you know, not to be unpopular in my viral video, but I think that that's an important part of growing up, too, is figuring out where those boundaries are. And sometimes you can't know that until you push them a little bit.
That's right. And, I mean, I tested my boundaries, and I had a mother who was a high school librarian, so I've told y'all that before. And so that, when I got to high school, I couldn't get away with everything because she was literally always lurking and always asking, what's going on with Jared, blah, blah, blah. She knew. She had moles in the school that would literally tell what was going on in my life. So that was a good thing. That helped me be a better student. So yeah, how was middle school? Was it a time that you look back to with positive feelings, or was it negative or mixed, or because that's different for everybody?
No, totally. It's interesting. I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life when I sort of hit middle school that was very distracting for me in a lot of ways, just in terms of, you know, stuff that was happening with my family and stuff that was happening outside of school. And that, I think, sort of impacted my ability to really enjoy to the fullest a lot of what I was experiencing in school. But I will say that a lot of the friendships that I made in middle school, a lot of the opportunities that I had, and a lot of the beginnings of freedom that I started to have to begin to understand myself in the context of being an individual person and not just being a part of, you know, the same groups that I'd been around in elementary school, or being a part of, you know, my family and my home situation, starting to be in the band and starting to be in after school clubs and starting to really, again, meet new people and just experience new things and sort of reinvent myself a little bit. That I do think really fondly about. I think that was a time that really set me up for some greater exploration further on down the road. I think that middle school is really cool because it's sort of the first time that you can start to step outside of those boundaries a little bit. You can start to maybe like pick out clothes that you wouldn't have been able to wear in elementary school. You can start to experiment with activities and clubs. You can start to take different course subjects other than just what's set up for you in your elementary school day. So I think that's a really cool thing. It's a really cool time.
Yeah, so that's another message right there. Dig in. Some of you all are bored and, you know, you want something more out of life. That's the point. Get involved with something that you haven't, and then you'll create a memory of something that wouldn't have existed if you hadn't done it. Yeah, so how long have you lived in the Winchester area?
So I went to school at Shenandoah University. So I was here, you know, part-time for the 4 years that I was in school here, and then I stuck around for a couple years after that. I moved out to Centerville for a year, and I lived there, and then I moved back when I took this job. So off and on total, I've probably spent about 9 years of my life living in Winchester.
All right. And yeah, what were your first jobs? Give us the age that you started your first one, and then kind of take us through to where you are now.
So my very first job was being a carny, and I don't know if people know what a carny is.
Oh, some of these kids love the carnival. Raise your hand if you're going to the carnival in a few weeks or an extra month. Yeah, they know.
So that's an atypical starter job. Not very many people sort of start down the carny path to success, but I did. I worked a summer as a Dippin' Dots sort of franchise worker at various carnivals across the state of West Virginia, and that was an interesting experience. But after that, I did some of the standard middle school, high school gigs. I did some babysitting. I did some helping out with promotion and graphic design for some people that I worked with, and that's sort of a path that I got started down because at the time that I was sort of growing up, computer fluency was there was a huge canyon between like kids who had grown up sort of messing with this stuff in their spare time and like adults who didn't really have an understanding of the technology yet. And so there was a lot of skill sets that I think I was able to foster and my peers around me were able to foster that weren't necessarily professionally trained, but stuff that we just knew and understood how to do that maybe the grown-ups around us didn't really know how to do. So that was some of the work I did for a while. But I did take some regular retail jobs after that. I worked at the Espresso Bar downtown, so I know that some of you guys met Miss Lenita Byrne last time. She was my boss for several years at the Espresso Bar. I worked retail. I worked at Books A Million for a while. I did some substitute teaching. I substitute taught for several years, and I did some long-term teaching assignments as well. I have a checkered employment history. So
That's cool, though. They need to hear this because that's the point.
I was a professional musician for a while. I played saxophone from the time I was like 10 or 11 years old. And when I hit 15, I started gigging professionally. I played in some bands in the Morgantown area, and throughout college, that's what I studied initially. So I went on, I did some recording, I did some paid gigs, I played in dance bands and jazz bands and pit orchestras. And that's what I was doing for a long time. That's what I thought I was going to keep doing.
Making money at it.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't end up being something that made me happier than it stressed me out. And then the entire world changed. So I thought it was something I would maybe go back to after I sort of took this job and got myself settled out for a while. And then, everything completely shifted on its head, and the performing industry was a totally different world. And I realized that going in the direction of creating opportunities for other people to make art and culture happen inside their communities was more interesting to me than continuing to get out there and be the person doing the late night, midnight gigs or playing dances or what have you. So,
and I see that because there's a few people that I went to school with that are musicians, and that's part of it. They are out late at night. They do gigs that last till midnight, 1 o'clock, and some of them aren't naturally night people. So, but that's when they have to go out and make their money. So, as a musician, it can get pretty ridiculous. So, that's good to know. Because there are a lot of musicians sitting in here. So that is very cool.
Yeah, well, if you have questions about that, you can ask me too.
Yeah, so keep that in line with your questions. Do you see yourself, because you work for our local government here in Winchester. Do you see yourself working for the local government for long term?
That probably depends on a lot of things. I mean, I think that the work that I do is really, really interesting, and I really enjoy it. I think it's important work that's not going anywhere. Local government jobs are jobs that will continue to stick around for a very long time. I think as long as we have cities, we're going to have people working in them and working to try to make them more interesting places. I think that at the same time, it's also important for some of the voices in those positions to stay fresh and different and relevant. I don't think that it's good for the same people to run your city long term. And so I kind of think that I'll probably stick it out for a few more years and then maybe look elsewhere. I mean, see if there's other work in the community I could be doing, or be a teacher and serve the next generation, or go back to being a very cool jazz musician. I don't know, but I think that it's work I'll probably stick with for a few more years at least, and maybe for the longer term. I don't think that I'll ever stop wanting to be involved in my local community and to do that work and to get engaged and involved with whatever's going on, but I don't know that it's always going to be my desk job.
Okay. Yeah, now there's another question on that. Do you think that you would ever seek an elected position?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so you don't feel like campaigning or going out for anything?
No, I don't feel particularly interested in that.
Yeah, hey. Now, walk us through what's your job, if you had to tell somebody, what do you do?
Sure, so I'm assuming that most people down here have been down to Old Town Winchester at least a little bit. You're all familiar with it, generally speaking. This place where you can walk around and all the stores are out and about. So this is Old Town Winchester. Old Town Winchester is sort of structured around what we call a Main Street program, because the Loudon Street Walking Mall is the main street of our downtown. And Main Street with a capital M and a capital S refers to a program that exists across the state of Virginia and across the nation, basically anywhere where you have these cool historic downtowns that have old buildings that have been preserved and have little retail stores inside of them. So my job is overseeing basically the health and wellness of Old Town as an economy. So I work with all the businesses downtown. I program a lot of the big events that happen downtown. I work within the local government to make sure that everybody who lives and operates downtown has what they need to succeed. I'm the person that sort of works as an advocate or an ambassador between businesses or visitors to Old Town and the people who make the higher up decisions about where funding goes and what things happen down there. I run social media pages for Old Town. I also do a lot of work, especially more recently as I've gotten to sort of have my feet under me a little bit more. I do a lot of work that has to do with finding people who, live and work in Winchester who maybe aren't seeing opportunities for themselves downtown, and working to create an environment down there that more accurately represents everybody that we have, living and working in Winchester. So for a long time, I think there's been this conception of Old Town Winchester as being a place that is just Civil War history and old expensive businesses that they can't really afford to shop at, or that's not interesting to them. And I worked very hard to make sure that people understand that Old Town is a place with a lot of really cool stuff in it, places that are actually really neat to shop and play and visit and eat food and get ice cream and go to an event and hang out with your friends, because I think that there's a lot more to it than people have spent a lot of time thinking. And I think that especially over the last few years, that people have been looking for places to just be that aren't inside their houses.
Yeah.
Making Old Town a really cool place to just, walk around and enjoy yourself and meet up with friends and hang out is a big part of my work.
And you all don't remember, but when I first moved here, it was 2007. That walking mall was rocks. It was literally pebbles and dirt, and there were not businesses in every building. It was kind of a hodgepodge place. But time and money have been invested in this to the point where it's actually a fun place to go walk. I like going down there because every time I walk, I see students that I know. I see people in the community. So it's kind of neat to have a place that you can walk and visit spots. There's coffee shops, there's restaurants, and there's places you can purchase stuff. What's your favorite event to plan?
Kids Fest. I really like Kids Fest. Kids Fest is really cool because it's a free event, so everybody can sort of come down and have something to do that's like very, very enjoyable for them. I like it a lot because a lot of the events that we put on are sort of dependent on trying to get people to spend their money, because that's part of a healthy economy, obviously. But when I was growing up, we really didn't have very much money at all. And so I really enjoy when I have an opportunity to put on an event for the community that is like free entertainment, that puts people in touch with all the really cool stuff that exists in their community. So part of what we do for Kids Fest is not just have, activities, or like you can throw a dart at a board or like spin a wheel and get a little, cheap plastic prize, but it's stuff that is activities being put on by the library or by the Discovery Museum or by local dance groups or local theater groups, so you can see all of the things that exist in Winchester that maybe you didn't have any idea were there, and then you can go and add those things into your everyday life. So you can like find out about all the cool programs that are at Handley or Bowman Library that are happening all the time, where they have like free programs and parties and activities and hobbies and classes, or where you can learn about all the stuff that's happening at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley, or Stella Theater Company, or Winchester Little Theater. Like, there are all sorts of groups in the community that I didn't know about until I started working for the city, and it was my job to be friends with all of them. That I really wish more people knew about. So that's a really cool event where we get to sort of host a big play date downtown and invite a lot of people, and it's really, really cool.
When is Kids Fest?
That is going to be May 13th. It's a Saturday.
So they get Apple Blossom and then they can have Kids Fest?
Yeah, April and May just keeps right on rolling.
Can it be bigger kids like these?
Yeah, totally. Come on down.
So bigger kids, May 13th, Kids Fest.
Kids of all ages.
Be there.
If you have a mom or a dad who's a kid as well, they can also come.
And so, what would be your favorite parts or your tasks or roles that you do? Like, what you look forward to the most in your business? Or would that your job?
No, that's a great question. So my job sort of has two halves to it, really. Half of it is sitting at a desk and answering emails and being in touch with people and responding to complaints and fielding criticisms and questions and doing annual reporting and government stuff, and that is not my favorite part of it, as you may have guessed by the way that I described it.
Yeah.
The other half of my job is getting out in the community, having meetings with people who are doing really amazing things and figuring out how I can get those things out to a broader audience. It's visiting cool stores and finding what is in there that they sell, and it's learning about everything that makes this community different from the other communities around us. And that part of my work I really enjoy. So when it comes to things like meeting new artists who I'm going to book for events and putting on free concerts for the town, or getting out and welcoming a new business to town and hearing about all the cool stuff that they're going to do, or working with a local group that has a really cool idea for a project that they want to make happen, and then getting to be the person who sort of helps pull the inside strings to get that moving. That's really, really cool. We did some work that we started last year where we started painting some parking space murals downtown.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that was a really, really cool project, because that's something that, a lot of people have wanted to see more art in Old Town for a really long time. And for a long, long time, it just wasn't happening. There was like no motion moving on it. So getting to work with Abby Gomez, who she and her nonprofit, Arte Libre, they worked on putting that together, and I got to work with them and say, I'm going to be the person who goes and bothers the folks inside local government until we get permission to do this, and I'm going to be the person who helps find money to make this happen. So that was really cool.
And talking about different roles within a job, even with teaching, like I have the administrative side. I've got to make sure that attendance is done. I got to make sure grades are in. I hate that side of it. I am not a clerical guy. I do not like sitting at a desk. I don't like doing paperwork. I like writing people letters and stuff. That's neat. But my point is, I would much rather just be focused on the kids and teaching and just have that. But that's part of my job. If I don't handle those things, essentially I'm not a teacher because I literally have to do those other parts. No matter what job you have, it's probably going to be dynamic where you have to be multiple people. So that's cool right there. What about the biggest challenge? Like, what seems to be your biggest challenge with your job?
Boy, howdy. There are a couple that come to mind. I think one of the challenges is I am a person who really wants to, believe that with enough elbow grease and enthusiasm you can make anything happen, and that's not how government works. It's just not. There are going to be times when there's going to be a really, really cool project, and this has happened several times, where there's a really cool project that I really believe in and I think would bring a lot of value to the community, and a lot of people really want to see it happen. And if somebody higher up than me tells me, you got to kill it, then it's done, and it can't go any further. And that's really hard. It's really demoralizing, and it's really frustrating, and it's hard because, I'm a representative of the city at the end of the day. I'm a representative of the government, and so if there's a decision made by somebody in City Hall or inside the government, then I have to represent that decision to the people who really wanted to see it happen. So there might be a project that I'm really excited about that I really want to bring to life, and if somebody tells me from higher up, like, that project can't move forward, then I have to end up being the person who goes back to the folks who really wanted it and say, we can't make that happen right now, I'm sorry. So,
and so you have to be able to accept that and move forward without losing your fire.
Yeah, and that's hard, and it's hard to be a voice for, decisions that I don't agree with. That's a really difficult part of my job sometimes.
And think about that, because you all will be part of organizations. For instance, military, maybe even a school, whatever. The point is, when you're part of an organization, you have to kind of go along with the way it works. You can't make your own decisions. So if you own your own business, though, think about that. You have a little more flexibility when you own your own company. You can make those decisions. You can be ridiculous like Elon Musk because nobody's there to tell Elon Musk no. So when you're part of an organization, you are going to have people that might tell you no, and you got to be able to deal with that. So that is an important point of government employment. Very good, yeah, absolutely. What's helped you succeed, like in terms of habits, maybe? Because these kids, some of them are developing good habits, some of them are playing with some bad habits. Is there anything that you can think that really helps you thrive or keep moving?
Yeah,
Hold on
absolutely.
1 second. Hey, Miss Price. Hey. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're good. Hey, if you're part of Price crowd, you gotta go. She's serious about English today.
Oh, man.
Boom. All right.
Let's get y'all.
But yeah, thank y'all for visiting. Seriously. Bye. Thanks for being here. Have fun in English. I know you guys love writing and reading and stuff. Bye, Jason. JoJo Siwa for life, okay? Okay?
Absolutely. JoJo Nation.
Man, we gotta get JoJo Siwa downtown on the Walking Mall. These kids would love to go to a free concert for JoJo Siwa.
I'm going to try really hard to get JoJo Siwa for kids.
I'll wear my bow.
Anyway, so I think one of the things that's really helped me succeed most in this job is the ability to work with other people, which seems like kind of a gimme, but honestly, like I was just saying, there's times when I have to represent decisions that I don't necessarily agree with. That does not always mean that that's where the decision stops. It means that sometimes that's where I clock out for the day and go talk to people and see who else in the community can make it happen. And it means that sometimes it's, there are things that come up in my job where a really cool idea arises and somebody will say, hey, we want to, put a mural on this building or what have you. And I might say, well, that's not in the budget or that's not really in the position that I have. I can't make that happen. I'm powerless to do that. But I just talked last week to somebody who has this really cool program where they do X, Y, Z, and then I can put those people in touch with each other, and that becomes a really cool, start of something else. So networking and working with people and getting a whole bunch of people with very different opinions on how their town and their home should look to agree on something that's going to be better for everybody is, a major part of the work that I do every day. And it's difficult because when you work in local government, the position that I hold is not a political position. I want to make that clear. I'm not elected, and I'm not like in a partisan job. But by nature of being in local government, people will always have opinions about what the government is representing and what the government is doing. They're always going to interpolate politicism where there isn't necessarily any. And so, you'll have people who will, dependent on who is in charge of those elected positions, will decide that whatever everybody else in City Hall is doing is representative of some bigger agenda, when that's not necessarily true. But it means that you have to be ready to hear a lot of things from all sides of the spectrum and to respond to all of those things with the same level of tact and integrity and decency and politeness, even when some of it really, really, really makes you angry. So being able to work with a lot of different kinds of people, being able to make good connections, and to have good relationships with all the people that you interact with, because you have no idea when one of those people is going to end up being really, really helpful to you.
Yeah.
Or when somebody who could get you in a lot of trouble is going to be more interested in helping you out and working with you. So
it's like playing matchmaker.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Yeah, if you had your own business, let's say you've used all the knowledge, all the experience to go back and start your own company, what would you be looking for with people that you would want to join on your crew or, your work?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The first thing, and this isn't necessarily like, super helpful in terms of making yourself employable, which is probably part of this question. The first thing is that I would be looking for people who have different experiences than me. I would be looking for people who know different things than I know, because that's the quickest way to get that information or that knowledge or that perspective represented in the decisions that I'm making, right? So if there's something that I don't know, I can either go back to school for 8 more years to learn it, or I can hire somebody who knows it. And one of those things is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I would be looking for people who have perspectives or knowledge or skill sets that I don't necessarily have. And I'd be bringing them in to do the work that I want them to be doing. I would also be looking for people who are interested in the work that they're doing. And I know that that's, again, kind of seems obvious, but I think that more and more, especially as time goes on, there's this understanding of work just becoming something that you have to do in order to get by. The economy is a difficult thing, and especially over the past several years, I think it's become harder and harder to envision like a dream job, because it seems like so much work is so demoralizing and so many working conditions are so frustrating. And that's absolutely true. It is hard. But I think that no matter what job you're doing, if you can find the part of it that you care about, that motivates you, and focus on that, that can become your avenue to making your work a little bit more enjoyable for yourself. There's a lot of parts of my job that I don't like. Yeah. And there are some parts of my job that I really, really love. And there are some days at my job where all I'm doing is the parts of it that I hate. But there are also days at my job where all I'm doing is the part that I love. And that's really cool. I love days like this. Today I had a meeting earlier this morning where I got to just meet with a bunch of different business owners and hear how things are going for them so far this year, and sort of listen to what ideas they had and their feedback on everything. And then I had a meeting with my boss just talking about all the projects we have going on right now and looking at upcoming events. And then I got to go outside in the sunshine for a little bit and take some pictures of Old Town, which was a great thing to do. And then I got to come here. So this is a great day at my job. And then, tomorrow I will probably spend the entire day chained to my computer doing reports and answering emails, and that's going to be kind of miserable. But if I were looking for somebody to hire for a position, somebody who's able to take the energy from those good days and let it keep them going through the bad days is a pretty big part of a workplace culture.
It is. Even with teaching, okay? If I did not love teaching, do y'all think I have to do a lot of frustration sometimes? Unnecessary stuff? That's part of it. And luckily I love what I do, so I can ignore those things. I can have bad days and I know that it's going to be all right. I'm going to get lost in the next goofy interaction with a kid, or see them learn something and get inspired and be okay. But yeah, sometimes no matter what your job is, it is going to pang at you. You're going to have negative, and if you love it, it's not going to matter. You just keep cruising. And I do. I love my job. So that helps me keep cruising through anything.
The other thing I'd probably be looking for is I'd probably be looking for people who've had a couple different types of jobs, which I think is really nerve-wracking sometimes. I know when I was in middle and high school and even in college, one of the things that really filled me with terror was the idea that because I bounced between so many different things, I was not going to be able to find someone who would look at my resume and want to hire me, because they would be looking for somebody who had done like 8 years solid in whatever job I was trying to apply to. And I think that is not an unreasonable concern, but the thing is that you're going to learn so many different skills by doing different things, and you're going to acquire random knowledge that will be so useful. When I started this job, the position that I had was not Old Town manager, it was like community arts manager. So
Wow.
my job was being just sort of working on specifically arts programming downtown. I wasn't responsible for like really the business side of it or anything. And my job has grown over the years as I've sort of, acquired more responsibilities and restructured into a larger and broader position.
So they keep changing their title the more you know and the more
yeah,
you do. They're just
a little bit. A little
you
bit,
up.
and part of that's been, just the interesting part of it. But what's funny is when I started my job, I didn't have any government experience, and I thought it was going to be kind of useless to apply for this position. But what I did have was I knew a ton of people in Winchester, and I knew a ton of people in arts organizations because I had this like background of doing all these different arts things. So I knew people at the theater, I knew people at the museum, I knew people at all the various musical groups in the community. And when they went to hire somebody, they were like, well, we can hire somebody who's really good at, doing a desk job, but doesn't really know anything about the place that they're supposed to be responsible for. Or we can hire this person who has worked downtown, who like knows the business owners, who knows all of these people who want to be working on projects in the downtown area, and who can use those experiences and that understanding of what artists need to put on successful arts events. And so even though I didn't have any experience being an arts administrator, I only had experience being an artist, that really helped me a lot when I was getting started in this position, to have an understanding that other people around me in City Hall didn't have. Nobody else in City Hall was, a former musician. Nobody else in City Hall was working with people at the local community theater. They didn't know what an artist needs to paint a parking space. Those were things that I knew because I'd done a bunch of different stuff in my life.
Now, there was another question I was going to ask you. With your outgoing personality, because that seems to benefit, was that something that you've always naturally had, outgoing or extrovert, or you had to kind of train yourself to be the type that can go out and talk to anybody and roll with it?
It's a little bit of both. I do find people just very interesting. I think that talking to people and learning what their deal is like a really cool experience. But when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school and even a little bit in middle school, I was a total bookworm. I was like I would just lock myself in my room for hours and read, and that's all I wanted to do. And I was kind of shy. I started doing theater when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, and that really helped me a lot in terms of just being able and unafraid to, speak up and say things in front of people, because that's a huge obstacle a lot of people have, is public speaking. It makes them very, very nervous. And just being able to put myself in that position and say, okay, you know what? Even if I am really not feeling it today, I am going to perform the role of an enthusiastic government servant today.
Yeah.
And that's a useful thing. Being able to sort of put yourself on stage in your job is helpful sometimes. You're not going to feel it every morning.
No. Do y'all think that I'm an actor sometimes? Yes. Yeah, that's really what it is. I'm performing for you guys. I have to perform 5 times a day. Some of the performances are really good, and sometimes it gets kicked off. But for the most part, that's the point. I perform every single day, just like Alex here. Good. Loving it. All right. Yeah, what's your favorite place to eat in Winchester?
Oh, it's Thai Winchester.
All right, Thai Winchester.
I love
Wow,
Thai
that didn't
Winchester.
even take me a
It
second.
does not
Damn,
take
it
me
was
more than
there.
a second. No, I have the
Yep,
answer
that's
to
a
that.
good place.
They're great.
Yep.
They do make
Yep.
Yeah, Thai Winchester is really excellent. When I moved here for college, like one of the first things people said to me on campus, they were like, "Oh, hey, welcome to Shenandoah University. Go to Thai Winchester," and I've never regretted that advice. It is served me well.
What about like places to shop? Like, give me a spot that you like going into on the Walking Mall.
I really like to go into Winchester Book Gallery.
Yep, Christine Patrick.
That's an amazing store. Christine Patrick is fantastic. She's a great person. Back to the Media is really cool, and they just, I saw the other day, picked up like an old vintage arcade machine, and they're going to put it in the back of their store, and they're going to have like some old vintage arcade machines back there, which is really, really awesome. So they're very cool. Let me see, who else? I mean, there's just like really, really amazing places on the Walking Mall. Incredible Flying Objects is a lot of fun. That's like
Handiworks is neat. They got some
Handworks
neat
is really,
stuff.
really
Yeah,
cool.
Handworks, that's it.
I love to go into Tin Top. They always have very cool local art, and they have a lot of other interesting things that people have made there. I've bought a ton of like prints and stuff there that I framed and put up in my house. So, yeah.
Hey, true or false? When you turn 18, you could open up your own store on the Walking Mall. True. That's the point, guys. There is no gap for you becoming successful. You have a great idea and it'll sell. You can put it right there on the walking mall yourself one day. So that's something else to think about. How about when you're stressed? What do you do that helps you? Because we all get stressed, and as you said, you have some stresses in your job. What are some go-to things that you do to try to relieve?
I really love hiking.
Okay.
So I love to hike, and that's one thing that really helps me a lot. I really like Old Town is the problem, and it used to be when I was in college and I would get stressed, I would walk down to Old Town. Now if I walk down to Old Town, I'm just going to work. So that doesn't really work the same way because people know me and recognize me. And if I go downtown, people are going to ask me questions about my job. And because I'm always like a representative.
You're famous now. It's no longer a peaceful walk.
No, not at all. And so if I go downtown and I'm like stressed and I'm complaining about people, like that reflects very poorly on me and the work that I do. But if I go up to the top of a mountain with my dog, like he can listen to me all day, and he's not going to tell anybody about a thing that I said. So I love hiking. I love getting up to, I go up to Bear's Den. Is a very good one for me. I like Eagle Rock. That's a great hike too. If anybody.
I live 2 miles from Eagle Rock. That is
nice. Okay, yeah, I love that one a lot. I like to go to the gym. So sometimes, pumping the iron,
productive things.
It out there. So those are helpful. Those are the big things. Sometimes I will simply text one of my friends and be like, hey, I desperately need to go get a milkshake right now. So that's a very helpful outlet.
Where though? Where are you going to get your milkshake?
Well, not downtown. Red Fox Creamery is amazing. Go there.
Yeah.
But for me, I'll go out to like Sonic or something, or I'll go to
Chick-fil-A's got a good one too.
Yeah.
And PAX. I like PAX.
PAX is great.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, so what would be your advice to an 8th grader? Because, they got a while until they can, some of them are actually already working, which is neat. But as an 8th grader, you go back, think about what you would have wanted somebody to tell you when you're in 8th grade. And that's kind of how we'll end this. And yeah.
The biggest thing I wish, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that I would have wanted to hear in 8th grade, or that I would love to go back and tell my 8th grade self now, is one, your life is going to be a lot longer than it feels like it is right now. And I know that is, sometimes a terrifying thought. But realistically, the things you're freaking out about right now, trying to pick out the exact courses that will put you on a fast track to success so you can have the exact career that you think you want to or need to have, and to figure everything out so that you can buy a house and buy a car and get a career that will launch you to fame at all the exact right times, is not going to go the way that you think it is. Nothing is going to go the way that you think it is, no matter how figured out you think you have it. So rather than trying to orchestrate all of those things for yourself right now, the best thing you can do is figure out how to have experiences and opportunities and friends and surroundings that will make you the kind of person you want to be. And that person will figure the rest of it out. I promise you that.
So yeah, if you hang around bright lights, you become bright. You hang around dark lights, you become darkness. There it is. That's real. Yeah. Any questions? Let's go.
Okay, what is the most important piece of information you've ever gotten in your entire life?
In my entire life?
What would you say, or ever learned? What would you say is the most important thing that you've ever learned?
Boy, that's a really great question.
Yeah, look at you. But yeah, going back to the example of theater, for some of you all that are shy, that is a great idea. So going back to what she said a little bit ago, Warren Buffett talks about the fact that if he hadn't taken a public speaking course, he would have never become who he was because he was way too shy to talk to people. But that one course that he took made him learn how to talk in front of people, and then he became who he is. So theater is her suggestion. I think that is amazing.
Here's an important piece of information that I think I've learned that's really been sticking with me, especially lately, is that people's perceptions of reality or their perceptions of situations or scenarios is statistically never going to be accurate, right? And that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that there's a massive disconnect between the facts of the way that a thing happens and the way that any given person interprets it. So I'm not saying everyone you talk to is wrong about everything that happens. What I'm saying is the way that you recall or interpret an event or a conversation or even an experience, or the way that you remember information from a class is going to be, on average, completely unrelated to the way another person takes away from it, okay? So not to say that like the things that you are seeing are wrong. I'm not trying to make anybody have an unreality spiral here. But the way that you and another person interpret a conversation is probably not going to be as clear or as similar as you think that it is. So it's always worth revisiting something after everybody's had a chance to sort of step away from it and just be like, hey, I wanted to follow up on this. What did you get from that? Or like, what are your thoughts on how we're doing this thing? Or even just remember that like if somebody is really, really mad at you about something, there's a million other things going on that influence their perception of that interaction that you don't know about. So what you should probably do is always take everything that people do a little bit personally, in the sense that you need to understand it's not just about the facts of the interaction, right? It's about that person and how they responded to a lot of different things that may or may not have anything to do with you. But it's personal for them, and the way that you react to things is personal for you. And starting to understand that really puts you on a much better path to interacting with other people, which I know is not like a fun, easy thing to write down on a flashcard and carry around with you. So I apologize if you were looking for some truth that would unlock the future for you. I don't have one.
Well, yeah,
but that's, I think, important to remember.
Yeah, to stay open-minded with your interactions. Like
So
that.
we're like input-output machines.
Yeah, and know that the input is not the same for each individual.
If the input's the same, the output is not always the same.
Exactly. You're an input-output machine, and all of the cogs inside of your machine are very different from the cogs inside somebody else's machine. So that's why you put the same thing in two different machines, even on the same day at the exact same time, and you'll get totally different stuff.
And the same with an individual. You can put an individual that has lack of sleep one day, and that same individual with sleep, and you've got two totally different interactions.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or hangry too. Think about that. When people are hungry, there's things that affect people's reaction to what they say, way more than people realize. So remember, don't take it personal sometimes. Think on it. Hey?
What's the weirdest thing you've had to do or plan for your job?
The weirdest thing I've had to
an
plan
eighth
for
grade
my
classroom.
job. That's not that weird. I guess I'm trying to figure out what I still consider weird.
If people showed up for the kids fest thinking it was the beer fest, that would be weird.
That would be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing. How many of you have ever like parked in one of the parking garages downtown? Or like your parents have parked in one of the parking garages, or somebody you're with parked in one of the parking garages? Okay, here's something you might not know. The parking garage that is like behind Indian Alley where the pavilion is, there is like an enormous storage room back in the catacombs of that garage. There's like a little door off to the right, and if you key in the code, and I'm not telling you this so you can try and figure out the code. If you like break in there, all you're gonna find is a bunch of Christmas decorations and garbage. But I was in there just the other day. I've been in there like several times since then. The first time I went in this room, I was mind blown because like one, I had no idea that was there, and I don't know how I just missed many, many square feet of parking garage. Like it just appeared before me, which was wild. But also, you know, you go in there and there's just like boxes upon boxes of things, like Christmas decorations and 50 red Christmas bells and like whole containers of cheap plastic Lays and like old beer steins and stuff. There's just like a ton of stuff back there. Government doesn't throw anything away, so there's
So
just
it's like government storage.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of storage back there. So I was back there the other day, and I was just like cleaning stuff out, and I pulled out this bin of things, which was full of what I thought at first were tablecloths, and I opened it up, and they were not tablecloths. It was a stack of like 50 cheap like kitchen tie aprons that all on the front of them had printed like the German beer maiden uniform.
Oh, wow.
And I guess they were for like an old
Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
But we just had like 50 of them in storage, so that was pretty weird.
What happens to them? You just leave them there?
I gave them to, there's a nonprofit now that does the Oktoberfest event.
Good.
That's not like run through the Old Town Department anymore. So I texted the guy who runs that nonprofit, and I was like, I have a bunch of Oktoberfest stuff. Do you want it? And he was like, great, yeah, absolutely. We would love to have some tablecloths and event supplies. And I was like, that's fantastic. I'm also going to hand you these.
So if you work for the government, you can
Your
plunder in
problem
random
now.
spots.
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah. you
Even
have
in the
access
school, like the old wrestling room, that's a weird spot. Anybody ever been down there? The old wrestling pad and the 5-6? That's a strange
Go
little
do
area.
urban exploration in your local
Yeah.
government.
All right, well, next question. Let's go. Cole, because you just went.
So speaking of your job, are you very involved in stuff like Apple Blossom or like Christmas Parade?
Yes and no. So Apple Blossom is run by a separate group, and their job is just to be Apple Blossom all year long. But I do work with them very closely in terms of sort of figuring out where the best place to put everything is, in terms of communicating to all the businesses downtown what's going on, and sort of helping to facilitate information so all the different groups and parks that have to play nice with each other. The Christmas parade is done by Parks and Rec, so I do work very closely with them too. Yeah, I helped find the tree that we put up on the walking mall every year. That's
How much
pretty
was
much
that
always.
this last year?
So it was donated.
Whoa!
So frequently what happens is we'll have somebody in the community who's like, I have a huge tree in my yard and I'd like it to be the Christmas tree. And then we will arrange to have it removed and transported, and that's always a big thing. But yeah, so if you don't know this, getting a tree removed from your yard is very expensive and annoying. So what's actually much easier is to donate it to the local government, who will then remove it for you and put it downtown and give you a nice thank you in the newspaper.
That's brilliant. Because when they bought it, it costs.
Oh yeah,
It costs. It was like 20,000 or
probably
30,000?
yeah, they're enormous.
Craziness.
Yeah.
All right, next question, Alex.
This isn't so much as a question. It's more like of a recommendation.
Okay, go.
For stress,
Mhm.
I would recommend going to a place in Front Royal.
Mhm.
It's a cavern place. I forgot what it was fully called. It was like something caverns.
Is it Skyline
Analyst?
Caverns?
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't been out there. I've been to Luray Caverns, and Luray Caverns was really, really cool. But that's a great idea. Yeah, Front Royal is very cool too.
Cavern shall suit you. All right, anybody else? Shane?
Did you play sports when you were young?
I played a little bit of volleyball, but I was not very sporty. My sister was very, very sporty. So I did like a volleyball clinic and travel team for a hot second, but I had complicated relationships with my siblings when I was growing up, and so sports were kind of her thing, and so it was kind of like I didn't want to touch that because we would have fought about it all the time. Now my sister and I have a very, very close relationship, and my sister is actually a math teacher over at Millbrook, but
So there you have it. If you don't get along with your sibling right now, there's still hope.
there is hope. There is hope. It might take a while, but and you won't get to play as much volleyball as maybe you would think would be cool, but.
Anybody else? Any other questions, Cole?
If you ever had the opportunity, what would be like your dream travel spot? Like,
Oh, that's a really great
favorite
question.
place?
Like flight leaves today.
Like
where you
anywhere in the
going?
world.
Yeah,
Man,
that's a good one.
that is an awesome question. I've been to Ireland. I went on a performance tour in Ireland when I was still in college, and that was amazing. I really enjoyed it. But that's sort of checked off the list now. So honestly, I'd be pretty happy if somebody just like gave me a ticket to anywhere and said, go.
Yeah.
I really enjoy, I don't get totally stressed out by the idea of not having all the details settled in beforehand. I kind of have to be
We
a little
love
more flexible than
serendipity.
that.
Serendipity's good.
So,
guys.
you know, I think it'd be really fun just to end up somewhere. That having been said, there are obviously places that are more difficult to travel than others without some advance notice. There are some places where you would kind of have to know the language in order to respectfully navigate, because I don't want to just go somewhere and assume that everybody's going to cater to all of my wants and needs. So I speak enough French that I could probably survive. I speak only the tiniest, most like conversational app amount of Korean, so that would be pretty bad, but I would enjoy it, I think, and I would sort of have a good time embarrassing myself. But other than that, you know, anywhere where English was predominantly spoken, I would be perfectly happy to find myself. So
There you have it.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
So if someone gets annoyed by like during Apple Blossom, like the road traffic stuff, does
Uh-huh.
that rage complaint go to you or to the Apple Blossom?
Oh, my friend, that is a great question. It comes to me.
Oh wow, poor thing. Like they do all the planning and then you get the complaints.
That's
Because the Apple Blossom, aren't they? They're a corporation.
They're a
Yeah.
nonprofit,
Yeah.
so they do it. But that's a very savvy question because it is that time of year.
Yeah,
It
and
is
the
already
trash too. The
happening.
trash shit for that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
ridiculous. Hey,
I have two questions.
go ahead.
First, like, I noticed you have a tattoo.
I do have a tattoo on my arm.
Do they mean anything?
So this one is just a tattoo that I got last year on my birthday because I always really wanted a tattoo and I was always like terrified to get one. And this was kind of, at the time, one, just getting the tattoo was like a super big deal for me. I was like, I am 28 years old, I'm gonna get a tattoo. And that was very exciting. But it is also it's iconography from an album that I really like, so.
All right.
And can you like speak some, like French or Korean?
Oui, je peux parler français si tu rends écouter, mais je ne parle bien français depuis 4-5 ans.
See? She knows.
So you say you know like Korean a
A
little?
little bit, yes. You really want to hear me say something in Korean?
Shane is putting you on the
Oh
spot.
boy, howdy. Ooh, now I'm
Yeah,
totally
get
blanking on
ready.
everything.
That's a real Korean thing to say.
한국어 아주 중요하시세요.
Huh?
한국어 아주 중요하시세요. So I only speak a very little Korean.
Shane doesn't speak Korean. That's what Shane has no clue what you're saying.
She said Korean something.
한국어 아주 중요하시세요. Which means Korean I speak very little.
There you have it. That's cool. Good question, Shane. Hey.
Talking back to when you were, you said you were in the band, you like to play saxophone.
I said I played saxophone. No, I did enjoy playing saxophone. I will play it.
Is there any other instruments that you like other than the saxophone, or is saxophone just your main thing?
Yeah, so the saxophone was my main thing, but I went to school for it, so that meant that I had to sort of learn some other instrumental, competencies as I went along. I did a lot of pit orchestra musician work, and I played as a jazz musician, which meant that I had to do a lot of woodwind doubling. And if you're not familiar with that, it's when you are a professional woodwind musician, there's this expectation that you will know how to play other woodwind instruments. So I played saxophone primarily. I played bari sax, which is the big one. And that meant that I had to also play other saxophones as well as clarinet, bass clarinet. I did play bassoon, but that was just because that was something I was also studying in college. So I played bassoon and contrabassoon, as well as saxophone, clarinet, bass clarinet, and I was really bad at flute.
Dang. It's a lot of instruments.
Have you
Yeah.
ever played alto clarinet?
I've never played contralto clarinet. No, I did play contrabass clarinet though, in high school.
Ooh, you're gonna have to talk to her now about that. You're just absolutely savage.
I don't know if she can handle all that. You all together, I don't know about that.
This is a similar question to a question I asked a little bit ago, but do you have like a favorite vacation spot, or like a spot that you go to?
Oh, it's so optimistic to
Like
think about
continual
getting
therapy.
vacations. I really like Chicago. I'm going to Chicago in about a week to take a vacation actually, which will be kind of a big deal for me to leave my work phone at home. But I really like Chicago. I love to be in that city. I have a lot of friends out there, and it's just a place I've always really enjoyed spending time and hanging out. I like the beach, but I haven't been in a very long time, so I don't really know.
The beaches of Chicago.
Yeah, the beaches of Chicago is sort of.
They got the Navy Harbor there, the Navy dock. That's a good.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so Chicago's a good vacation spot. I recently as in a couple months ago, got out to Portland, Oregon for the first time. It was my first time ever being on the West Coast. And that was really cool. Very, very different from being over here because I've grown up on the East Coast my whole life. So it was just neat to see a totally different side of the country.
Well, great, and I guess too, you could steal ideas from. Do you do that? Do you steal ideas from other cities and what they're doing?
Relentlessly.
Yeah,
That's-
that would be the cool.
that's
It's
a
like
big
me
part of
stealing
it.
ideas from other teachers, but yeah.
Well, and sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes it's encouraged. We have, like I mentioned earlier, that the whole Main Street concept is something that people all across Virginia and all across the country do. We have like conferences and stuff where other downtown directors will go and sort of share ideas, and,
sure.
and hit up, clinics and conversations and courses like that. I'm sorry, you've had your hand up for quite a minute, so.
Our bad.
I saw on the Winchester website, the one with the everything on it,
Mm-hmm.
that you used to dye your hair.
Yeah, my hair used to be a lot cooler.
Yeah. Well, no, wait, hold on.
Okay.
I didn't mean it like that. Sorry. Did you do your hair yourself, or did you get someone else dye?
I did. Yeah, I did my hair myself.
What was your favorite color that you did?
Well, let me see. For a long time, like from the time that I was in high school until like well after college, the only color I did was like that bright fire truck red. So I had like really bright fire truck red hair for a long time. And then it was only really once I sort of started settling into things a little bit more, and I took this job, and I had a boss who was very clear, like that he didn't care if I dyed my hair, because I was a little worried about that when I started government work. I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to, tone it down and behave myself? And he was like, I don't really care as long as you do your job. So I started experimenting quite a lot. So I did what was it on the page? Was it like the blue?
Well, we can
and
pull it up here.
blue
We'll
and
put
purple?
you
Oh,
up.
we don't have to do all that.
Come on, here you go. Be famous. Be famous.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
So that was when I had like the green and silver, which was pretty
That's
cool.
a good mix right
So I
there.
like the green and silver. I had for a minute, I had like black and blue at the ends, and I liked that too. So I don't know. I've done a few different things. I did like a rose gold pink for a while last summer, and that was nice. I like to change it up. This is actually like my natural hair color, and it's the first time I spend well, it's mostly my natural hair color. My ends are a little bit lighter, but yeah, it's the first time I've seen my natural hair color probably since 9th grade.
And that is cool that the government is not picky about dress code and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Because it
yeah.
used to be that way back in the old days. So it's,
Well, it really
everybody's-
depends on where you work. You know,
Yeah.
we have a different city manager now than we did even a few years ago, and we have in my department. You know, my boss is pretty cool about it. So yeah, the nature of that work is changing. I think there's an expectation and understanding that if you want to continue getting younger people involved in the work that you're doing, then you gotta let them be
Even
who they
police
are.
officers letting that go too. Do you? Yeah, the last question again. Do you work with the city manager more or more with the mayor? Like, who do you see FaceTime with the most?
That's a really good question, and that sort of falls to an understanding of which things in the city are whose responsibility. I'm very fortunate because I do have a working relationship with both of them. The city manager is more like in the line of my direct chain of command.
Boss.
So yeah, so my boss is the economic development director, and then the economic development director is underneath the city manager. So that's like direct chain of command. And I do talk directly to the city manager from time to time. But the mayor, because our mayor is also very, very involved in Old Town, I do get to see him regularly. So our mayor owns a business in Old Town. He also used to be the chair of like the Old Town committee.
Yeah.
So he's been very, very involved in Old Town for a long time. If he were anybody other than who he is, I probably would see a lot less of him. But because he just really cares about Old Town and the downtown community, I do get to work with him fairly frequently. And he has a very cool office, so
Yeah.
that's always awesome.
So being mayor, you can have a cool office.
Yeah,
There
you get to
go.
have a really cool office if you're the mayor.
Well, anything else? Any last question?
Do you also do like work with the Winchester Star?
I don't work with the Winchester Star. We have to sort of, not have to, there's sort of an understanding that we'll keep things a little bit separate there so that they can be trusted as a non-biased reporter, and so that we can be trusted to be operating in whatever way the city is going to operate. But I do frequently, like there will be articles written about stuff that we're doing or events and everything. So I get interviewed by them a lot. They come to a lot of our like board meetings and things, and we'll report on stuff that happens in the city. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a like working relationship with them in the same way.
I will, yep. Hey, Lola, Mr. Scott's office. Poor Lola.
All right. So, yeah, Lila.
When you were younger, did you ever have like a dream job or a job in mind for what you wanted to be when you were younger?
I did, and none of it was this. But I'm not disappointed by that. I just think that my understanding of myself has changed a lot, and I don't think that the things that I thought I wanted then are any of the same things that have actually proven to make me happy. So when I was younger, I really thought, obviously when I was in elementary school, I thought I was going to be like a lawyer, astronaut, ballerina, author, but I think everybody thinks that. Everybody goes through that phase. So, as I got older, I really wanted to, for a while, be an animator. That was something that was really interesting to me. I thought I was going to work in animated movies, and that was just not something that was going to happen. I was doing a lot of other stuff, and I didn't put the time into having a portfolio or anything. And I think that what I eventually learned, because the next thing I went on to do, obviously, was to train to be a professional musician. I ended up learning that, for me at least, doing that every single day until I hated it was going to be way worse than just working a separate day job and then keeping space for the things that I liked. So I think there are people, obviously, who can be professional musicians or professional artists and really care about that work and love it the rest of their life. For me, getting too much business involved in the thing that I had sort of built my entire self around really, really put me in a bad place mentally. It was very, very difficult for me to separate myself and my feelings of self-worth out from the work that I was doing because I was so emotionally tied up in it.
Yeah, I hear that too from people that do gig work.
It's hard.
Even people that play piano and stuff like that, they get burned out because the economics behind it kind of
Really,
ruins
really
it.
difficult. Yeah. because when you're doing any kind of work that's an expression of yourself in that way, in a way that's personal, you know, and if somebody doesn't like it or doesn't hire you or you don't get the gig, then it's like, oh, it's me that's not good enough. It's not the work that I'm doing, because there's no distinction between those things.
It's tougher when you depend on it.
Yeah.
Even more so. Just have something.
I'm sorry, this is coming from someone, I really like Back to the Media. I think it's one of my favorite stories in Old Town. Is there like any like categories there you really like? Do you like old movies or?
I have a vinyl turntable, so I like to pick up old albums when I'm in there sometimes. I also, I like to look at the Pokemon cards. Some of my friends collect like very cool Pokemon cards.
Cool.
I don't, but I really like them, and I like to see all the cool ones they have in the case. I am not really tremendously a gamer. I have the full Kingdom Hearts collection, and that's about as much video game as I can handle in my life. But I did play through the entire Kingdom Hearts collection throughout the space of quarantine, which was sort of a personal journey that I went on. But I'm not really huge into video games, except that I do have the latest Pokemon game for my Switch, and that was a lot of fun. It's a really good one, I think.
So yeah, keep it young forever. Just keep playing.
Yeah,
It's good.
Pokemon forever. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
it. Yeah, back to what she was saying a little bit ago about the journey and how it wasn't what she thought it would be. Mention the self-assessment, like understanding yourself. That is often the hardest part about knowing where you fit in your personality in terms of a job. So, and we teach that here in 8th grade, so the fact that you mentioned that, keep that in mind, kids. You want to align it with your personality and things that you like to do. Anybody else? We are leaving. We got like 2 minutes. Hey.
I sold my 2DS to the media to get enough money to buy my Switch Lite.
Oh, right on.
Hey, and you're supporting their business too, because they
That's
refurbish
right.
it, clean it, and then
Great
sell it to
idea.
somebody else.
I actually went back in like a couple weeks later and I saw it. It's sitting there on the case. I don't know about now. It might be, but it's the
Supply and demand, buddy.
It's like Super Mario Maker edition, so it's like yellow.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So
That's one of the cool things about a small business in a small town is you can see directly the impact that like your actions have on something, right? So you sell your 2DS to the local video game store, and then you get to see it on the shelf, which is just kind of a neat thing.
It is.
And it's like that all the way up. You know, you can look at projects that you start, and then you get to see 6 months later the way that they appear on the surface of your.
Yeah, because you're like painting a canvas, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, well, guys, round of applause for Alex. This was awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, of
Seriously,
course.
this was great.
If anybody has any follow-up questions, you can find my
Yeah.
contact form on the website, and you can email me.
That's right. Yes, I have her email, so if you need to.